So we realized, I went back to Dr. Linus Pauling, working with him, we realized that what we had to do was to make food that would alkalinize the system. It had to be affordable, it had to be quick, it had to be natural, it had to be made up of the full spectrum of colors that nature has, it had to be made up of nutrients that came from the ocean, nutrients from the land, grown on soils that were nutrient-rich, organic when possible. And it's the mineral content, because it is the minerals in Greens Plus that make their way to the kidneys to make these antacid sponges. So I want to go ahead a little. At the University of Texas, there's a very prestigious researcher for athletic performance. He works with the New York Yankees, he works with many of the NFL football teams, with elite athletes. His name's Dr. John Berardi. He's handsome and young and just looks like Chris Daniels. Except Chris is a little more handsome. But he...
Why is he in the front row then?
She said all the good-looking people were in the front row. Oh, are there any... Oh, everybody, eh? No. So Dr. John Berardi, I did not know this, but with all his professional athletes, he has them using Greens Plus. Really elite athletes. There might be, 50, 60 that he's dealing with at any given time. I started to work with him because he worked with all the Canadian Olympic athletes. But John Berardi, we discovered, was getting his athletes to take Greens Plus. And how did we find that out? Let's say Ryan's in good shape and he's exercising. Well, one of the people that works for Greens Plus in Canada was like Ryan, and he wanted to get in the best shape possible. He was already in dynamic shape, so he went to one of Dr. John Berardi's weekend workshops. He goes around the world and will do weekend workshops for the very most elite of athletes. And during his 3-day workshop, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it's about nutrition, it's about exercise performance, but exactly when and how to do it, how to balance hormones. It's very, very scientific. You can go on your computer, look him up, you'll see his whole programs. And you can even interface with all the elite athletes that are on his Facebook site. But at any rate, the person that was there, Dr. John Berardi, mentioned about his research with athletes and how you had to stay alkaline. Because why? The more alkaline an athlete is, the longer it takes till those rate-limiting acids, which will build up enough that they prevent performance from happening at an optimal level. The sooner acids build up, you're going to stop your exercise, you're going to stop playing tennis or golf or walking or swimming or biking, you're going to get exhausted sooner. So the goal Dr. John Berardi found out separate from myself, independent research, was that the longer he could keep his athletes alkaline, the longer they could function, the better performance levels they could get. So he has all his athletes take a Greens Plus. At one of his workshops, one of the people from Greens Plus Canada put up his hand and said, you mentioned Greens Plus, which Greens Plus should we be taking? I wondered what his answer was going to be if he'd say, well, don't ever use that Greens Plus, it's the worst one. So his heart was kind of going, and Dr. John Berardi said, well, I don't get involved with any coaching. Just make sure you use a good quality green drink, alkalize yourself in water 20 minutes before you exercise with 0 sugars. Don't put any sugars. Sugars will spike insulin, will cause acidity, and you will get 0 performance benefits from that. You need to have your Greens Plus in water 20 minutes before, not Greens Plus, he said a green drink in water. So he started talking, so this fellow put his hand up again, he kept presenting, he said, well, is there one better than another that you have found? And he said, yeah, some are better than others, but it's not my job to define that or talk about that. I don't get involved in anything that's of that end of it all. And so then he put his hand up again, he said, okay, let me just ask you directly then, which one do you use? And he said, well, I use one called Greens Plus. And of course, the fellow from texted me right away. Dr. John Berardi's workshop, he's talking about acid alkalinity, he's saying Greens Plus is the best because of the research he did at the University of Texas on it. So, Jeanette Graff came to that conclusion. Dr. John Berardi came to that conclusion. There's a whole host of oncologists coming to that same conclusion. There's a whole host of psychiatrists that we work with out of Canadian universities and out of Harvard universities that have come to that same conclusion. So, at the University of Toronto Faculty of Medicine, we wanted to find out how alkalizing is Green's Plus. There's a test we do called the potential renal acid load, the PROL test. It's a very sophisticated test in which you can find out what the ability of anything, an apple, a pear, a hamburger, what its ability to acidify the system or alkalinize the system. The lower the number, the more alkaline is a food. So if you get a score that's low, like minus 200, that's very alkaline. Well, the University of Toronto discovered they could not find anything as alkalizing as Green's Plus. And Green's Plus had an alkalizing score of minus 333. So very, very alkalizing. These are pieces of research that Chris downloaded yesterday from the computer. So then at the University of Western Ontario, London, Ontario, we sent Green's Plus up to oncologists there to examine what is Green's Plus function then with actual live cancer cells. So we put it to the top. And Green's Plus, do you remember the number of lung cancer cells in the clinic was 90? I think it was 90% of all lung cancer cells and 82% of all melanoma skin cancer cells. Clinical research, paper written on it, eliminated them. It did not eliminate them. It made the environment alkaline so they couldn't proliferate and grow. Green's Plus can't kill something. It just made the environment alkaline so the cancer cells couldn't grow, couldn't colonize, and couldn't spread. So from there, then we went back to the University of Western Ontario to find out how alkalizing is Green's Plus. Well, Dr. Venkat Rao said, okay, I'm going to find out what is the most alkalizing vegetable, what's the most alkalizing fruit, and we'll compare Green's Plus to it. So after all the research, they came up with that organic spinach is the most alkalizing vegetable. And organic raisins are the most alkalizing fruit. So then he compared Green's Plus to it, another piece of research with clinical results that's published in a medical journal. And it came out that Green's Plus is 200% more alkalizing than the spinach and 300% more alkalizing than the raisins. So it got pretty amazing, right? So then, we also designed Green's Plus, because of its whole spectrum of colors, to be full of antioxidants and phytonutrients. And let's go back to why these two are important. We hear this today. A food contains a lot of antioxidants or a lot of phytonutrients in them. We developed using oxygen to live on and getting rid of carbon dioxide, the acid byproduct of using oxygen. Oxygen's a very, very tricky substance. We need oxygen to live, but oxygen breaks down. And it becomes a free radical itself that is literally eating away at us. So here we need the oxygen to breathe, but unless the oxygen is really prevented from deteriorating and forming free radicals, it actually can become a corrosive material within us. So we can't stop it completely, but we'd like to slow that down. So nature developed to help us with that process, antioxidants that are in vegetation. And the more colorful the vegetation, the varieties of antioxidants that it might contain. So red might contain one variety of antioxidants, and green and purple and yellow and orange. That's why we say a whole spectrum of foods. Eat by a variety of colors to make sure you're getting varieties of antioxidants. So the goal of an antioxidant is to go to your cell structure and literally stand armed guard around it to stop the oxygen and other things from breaking down and deteriorating the structure of that cell. They're armed guards. Foods also contain by color phytonutrients. Phytonutrients have a little different job to do. Phytonutrients are anti-disease agents. So phytonutrients, for instance, we've asked women to eat a lot of the cruciferous vegetables, which are things like broccoli, kale, Swiss chard, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, watercress, the list goes on and on, because they contain a phytonutrient called sulforaphane. The sulforaphane has the ability to get into the uterus and to get into the breast and prevent the proliferation and growth of cancer cell colonies. We've asked men to eat a lot of red, whether it's a pink grapefruit, whether it's watermelon, whether it's black cherries or whether it's tomatoes, because they contain lycopene. And lycopene has the ability to get into your prostate gland. And if the prostate gland is healthy, your urination is healthy, your semen production is healthy, and you function well. Males' prostate glands are under assault. All males are under gigantic assault right now. The amount of semen that we produce, the amount of functional ability within it is declining every single year because of the lack of antioxidants and phytonutrients in our food, and the amount of pollutions that we're taking in are overloading that particular organ or gland in males. And so a lot of prostate cancer is coming up. Same with the colon. We don't have the protection for the colon, so males are experiencing dramatic growth in colon cancer and prostate cancer. Women have kind of neutralized breast cancer because women are more proactive than men to take care of the health. So women have done things about nutrition and health and exercise and stress reduction. So breast cancer has actually come down where the other male-oriented cancers are going up. What is going up the most of everything right now? Alzheimer's, mental dementia, because the brain's under assault. So alkalinity, phytonutrients, antioxidants are nature's answer for all of that. So when we look at Greens Plus, suddenly what we found out by going to the University of Toronto was not only were the amount of phytonutrients and the amount of antioxidants contained in the product at an elevated level, astonishingly high, but they're bioavailable. Let's go to why. Bioavailable means this. If somebody says to you, eat a lot of prunes are full of antioxidants. Or people say, eat a lot of those cruciferous vegetables, or a lot of vegetables that have lycopene if you're a man, and cruciferous vegetables if you're a female for the phytonutrients. That all makes sense. But it's not so much today what you eat, it's what you absorb. So we as researchers go back. The most fundamental thing we have to answer is, not do you take something in, but do you absorb it? Is it in your bloodstream? The only answer is it in your bloodstream? So we say the blood doesn't lie. So if I take blood samples from you right now and test your antioxidants, test your phytonutrients, test your hormone levels, test your insulin levels, test your DHEA levels, you don't have to say one word. I can tell you what you're experiencing, what health problems you might be experiencing, your sleep, your energy, etc., because we look at the profile in the blood. So we wanted to find out. So we discovered that Greens Plus, the very first ingredient we used was a phosphatide complex. We took it out of soybeans. Some people just use the simple name lecithin. But if you go on your computer and you look up lecithin, you'll find probably about 3,500 studies on lecithin. It's the only dipolar molecule in the whole world. Dipolar means one end has an affinity for water and one end has an affinity for fat.